I read it while setting the table. 2 plates, candles lit, lasagna cooling on the counter. It was our anniversary. 23 years. But instead of coming home, he sent me this text. I'm leaving you. Carla and I are in Barcelona. Don't make this harder than it is. I didn't drop the phone. I didn't cry. I turned off the oven, poured his wine down the sink, and blew out the candle. Everything clean and quiet. My name is Kim. I'm 50. And tonight, my husband ended our marriage with a message shorter than a grocery list. I walked upstairs and opened the filing cabinet. I didn't rush. Everything was where I'd left it. Utility bills, bank statements, insurance paperwork, and under property, the deed to the house, in my name only. He'd signed the refinance papers years ago without even reading them. Said he trusted me. That was his first mistake. Another message came through while I was sorting paperwork. Don't be dramatic. This was coming for a long time. We haven't been happy in years. Carla makes me feel alive again. I'll send someone to collect my things next week. I stared at the screen for a moment, then turned it face down on the dresser. Not happy? That's rich, coming from the man who spent the last 6 months sleeping in until noon and pretending. The garden needed constant maintenance just to avoid conversations. I noticed the changes, the secretive texts, the gym membership, the cologne I didn't buy. He started trimming his nose hairs. That alone should have been a red flag. 3 weeks ago, I moved half our savings into a separate account. Quietly. Just in case. Not because I expected this, because I recognized this. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was busy. I logged into our joint account. Just as I suspected. Emptied. A transfer to an account I didn't recognize. Time-stamped this morning. Sloppy. I took a screenshot. Opened the folder on my desktop labeled Household Records, and added it to the growing file of things Peter would eventually regret. The next text buzzed in, louder somehow. You can keep the house. It's too full of bad memories anyway. I'll be staying in Europe for a while. Carla wants to travel. Generous, considering he doesn't own the house. I made tea. Pulled out a yellow notepad. Began writing a list. Call lawyer, change locks, cancel joint cards, move remaining funds, review travel history, document messages. I don't rush. I prepare. By morning, the checklist was half complete. The locks had been changed by 9 a.m. The bank had flagged Peter's transfer as suspicious. The joint credit cards were canceled. His gym would be in for a surprise. My lawyer picked up on the first ring. It's time, I said. I was wondering when you'd call, she replied. Everything's ready. We'd spoken once before. Months ago. Just an exploratory meeting. Back then, I wasn't sure. Now, I was certain. I assume we're filing immediately? Yes. And I want to include the screenshots. Of course, premeditation helps. While she prepared the filing, I sat at the kitchen table and reviewed my notes. Peter had always acted like I was slow, careful, predictable. He mistook patience for passivity. Another message buzzed in. You'll be fine. You've got your routines, your tea, your books, your quiet little life. I smiled at that one. Peter had. Never understood how much I'd built in the quiet. The house was mine. The pension I'd earned from 30 years at the same company? Untouchable. The savings he didn't know about, spread across accounts he never bothered to ask about? Growing. And the one thing he'd always rolled his eyes at, my spreadsheet obsession, was about to become my best weapon. Every odd charge, every transfer, every dinner receipt he lied about. Logged, categorized, time-stamped. He'd spent months planning his escape. I'd spent months documenting it. Another message lit up my phone. Carla thinks I was too soft on you. Said I should have cut ties months ago. You're too stuck in your ways. I need someone who lives. He really thought this was about romance, about passion. He had no idea this was now a legal proceeding. I didn't answer. I was busy compiling a folder labeled Peter, Financial Irregularities. A minute later, another ping. I'll be fair. You can keep the furniture. I don't need old stuff anyway. Starting fresh. How generous. This was the man who once threw a fit when I donated an old coffee table. Now he was playing philanthropist, with items he'd barely paid for. Then came the kicker. By the way, we used the joint card for the flights and hotel. Consider it a farewell gift. Barcelona is amazing. Perfect. I opened my email and forwarded the messages to my lawyer. Then I called the credit card company. Yes, I'd like to report fraudulent charges, I said calmly. Flights and hotel booked today using a joint card. I have written proof from the unauthorized user. The agent's voice perked up. We'll reverse the charges immediately, ma'am, and remove him as an authorized user. Thank you. Please also note his admission was in writing. As I hung up, I imagined Peter and Carla showing up at the airport the next morning. Tickets declined, hotel reservation canceled. He thought he'd made a clean break. He thought I'd crumble. He had no idea the floor had already been pulled out from under him. By midday, he was back in my inbox. You always made things more complicated than they needed to be. Carla and I just want peace. Let's not turn this into something ugly. I forwarded that one too. A few minutes later, I know you're angry, but you don't have to be petty. Maybe we can work something out. I'll even throw in a fair cut of the house. The house. The one with my name on the deed. The one paid for with my inheritance. The one he always wanted to refinance together because it felt weird. Not having his name on it. I sipped my tea. He sent another. I don't want to fight. Let's split the business 50-50. I supported you when you started it, remember? There it was. The business he'd always called my little side hustle. The same. One he told his friends wasn't a real job. Now suddenly, it was a shared empire. I had the receipts, literally and figuratively, to prove otherwise. Registered under my name, built with my savings, taxed separately, and never once tied to his finances. Still, I let him talk. He needed to believe he was winning. He sent another message later that evening. You'll regret going against me like this. Lawyers just make things worse. I was trying to be kind. Carla thinks you're being bitter. Carla. The woman who once handed me my coat at Peter's office Christmas party and called me Mrs. Dull. I remember her glitter nails and her forced smile. I remember the way she looked at Peter like he was a promotion. They both underestimated me, and tomorrow they'd start to understand exactly how badly. What did you do to the credit card? The airline won't let us board. The hotel says the booking was canceled. Fix this, Kim. I turned off notifications and got dressed for the day. There was no panic in my routine, just a quiet satisfaction in the way everything was unfolding, exactly as I'd planned. At 10:07, Peter's mother called. Kim, dear, we've heard what happened. Peter says you're making things very difficult. He told us you froze the accounts. That's not fair. I put her on speaker while organizing the legal folder for my lawyer. Did he also tell you he emptied the joint account and used our credit card to fund a getaway with Carla? Silence. He said you were being unreasonable, that you'd been distant for years. That this whole thing was my fault, I finished for her. I have copies of every message he sent. I can forward them to you if you'd like. Another pause. He mentioned the texts. Said they were emotional. No, they were evidence, and I've passed them along to the court. She mumbled something about hoping we could still be civil. I ended the call politely and made a note. Limit contact with in-laws. Per legal advice. By lunch, the text had turned frantic. You're overreacting. This isn't you. I always said you were better than this. No. What he always said was that I was predictable. Easy to manage. Soft. And now, faced with consequences for the first time in his life, he was unraveling. I checked in with my lawyer. He's been served, she confirmed. We filed for asset protection and emergency financial freeze. Given his text admissions, the court's moving quickly. How fast? Emergency hearing is Monday. He'll be notified at his current location. What's the address again? Some budget motel outside the airport. They're living the dream. Perfect, she said. And by the way, Carla's been posting. I smiled. Let me guess. Inspirational quotes and thinly veiled complaints? She called you toxic in a caption about growing through adversity. Very helpful to our case. Peter thought he was escaping to freedom. He didn't realize he'd just stepped into the spotlight, with receipts. Monday came fast. I arrived at the courthouse early. Calm, document folder in hand. Neutral dress, low heels, no makeup. I didn't need theatrics. I had facts. Peter showed up late, wearing a blazer 2 sizes too small and sunglasses indoors. He looked like someone trying too hard to look unbothered. Carla wasn't with him. I wasn't surprised. My lawyer laid out everything, with surgical precision. Every transfer, every charge, every smug text message. Your Honor, she said, holding up a printed screenshot. This message, in which Mr. Reynolds says, quote, "Consider the flight and hotel my farewell gift," is a clear admission of misappropriation of marital funds for a non-marital purpose. Peter's lawyer tried to play damage control. My client acted impulsively, but Mrs. Reynolds has responded with excessive aggression. She's made no effort to resolve this privately. My lawyer didn't flinch. Mrs. Reynolds did attempt private resolution by not responding at all. She chose legal recourse because her husband fled the country with a girlfriend and emptied their account. The judge turned to Peter. Mr. Reynolds, do you dispute using shared funds for personal travel with another woman? Peter squirmed. I just needed space. Clarity. Clarity doesn't cost $6,400 in first-class tickets. And a beachfront suite, the judge replied. We moved to asset division. Peter's lawyer argued he contributed to the household, supported my business emotionally, shared the vision. My client refers to multiple text messages and social posts where he called her work a hobby and her business a little shop, my lawyer countered. We also have bank records showing no financial contributions from Mr. Reynolds to the business. 0. The judge nodded slowly, flipping through the papers. Everything points to a clear pattern of financial misconduct and a deliberate attempt to deplete shared assets prior to filing. Peter shifted in his chair. For the first time, he looked small. Mr. Reynolds, the judge said, you are ordered to repay the missing funds within 10 days. All joint accounts are frozen. Property and business remain with Mrs. Reynolds pending final division. But I don't have it anymore, Peter stammered. Then I suggest you figure it out, the judge said, already moving to the next case. Outside, I walked past him without a word. He was standing by the steps, checking his phone, maybe waiting for Carla. She never showed. I didn't stop, just kept walking. Each step a little lighter than the one before. The day after the hearing, Peter tried to spin it. He sent an email this time. Formal subject line, a bulleted list of proposed compromises. He'd move out of the motel if I covered his short-term housing. He'd waive claims to the house if I gave him 20% of the business. He'd agree not to drag things out legally if I met him halfway. He attached a spreadsheet. It was color-coded. The man who once refused to open a bank statement had suddenly become an Excel enthusiast. I almost laughed. Instead, I forwarded it to my lawyer with one sentence. He's starting to panic. Later that week, I stopped by the office of a small local accounting firm. Not for financial help. I already had that covered. I was looking into buying the building. I'd overheard the owner mention retirement last month while I was in line at the bakery next door. Peter always said I lacked ambition. that I was lucky my job didn't require risk. He mistook stability for smallness. He always did. By Friday, word had spread. A former co-worker texted me. He's telling people you're freezing him out, that he made a mistake leaving, but you're being cruel about it. Cruel? Cruel is disappearing across the world and sending a breakup text like, it's a lunch cancellation. Cruel is mocking someone's age while draining their bank account. Cruel is assuming the person you're betraying is too weak to respond with anything but tears. I responded with a real estate offer. By midweek, Peter was calling from a blocked number. I didn't answer. Then came the email, subject line and all, caps. Emergency, please read. Apparently, his credit cards were frozen. His savings, what little he had, was under review. And Carla? She'd gone back to her ex-boyfriend, claiming she didn't sign up for this kind of drama. He ended the email with, maybe we moved too fast. Maybe we both made mistakes. I forwarded it to my lawyer. No response, she reminded me. Let him spiral. He did. The next day, Amanda, his sister, walked into the shop. She looked tired. He's staying in our parents' basement now, she said, barely able to meet my eyes. He's been applying for jobs. No one's calling back. Maybe he should try being someone people want to work with, I replied, arranging scarves in the window. She gave a sad laugh. He still thinks you're going to forgive him, that this is a phase. I didn't respond. That night, I received a screenshot from a former colleague of Peter's. He'd been in a private group chat with old work friends, venting. His messages were a mix of self-pity and arrogance. He called me cold, calculating, and claimed I'd weaponized the court system. He also mentioned looking into cryptocurrency again. Fast money, he wrote. One good investment, and I'm back on top. The man was in free fall and still thought he had a parachute. Meanwhile, the seller accepted my offer on the accounting firm's building. The deal would close in 30 days. I was already planning how I'd redesign the storefront. Something bold, sharp, modern. I wasn't just recovering, I was expanding. By the following week, Peter had gone from pleading to threatening. If you don't stop this, I'll go to the press. I'll tell them how you manipulated everything. People need to know who you really are. I forwarded it, like the rest. My lawyer replied within minutes. Empty threat. He has no case and no credibility. Let him try. The next day, someone from a tabloid-style blog actually did reach out. We heard rumors of a dramatic midlife split, the email read, and would love your side of the story. I declined the interview. I didn't need to explain myself to strangers. I had customers to serve, inventory to order, and a renovation design to finalize. The world didn't need a spectacle. It needed better lighting over the new display wall I was planning. Meanwhile, Peter's fast investment in crypto tanked. A minor coin he poured the last of his liquid funds into dropped 70% overnight. Amanda texted me later. He said he was going to bounce back stronger. But I found him Googling if you can pawn an engagement ring. A week later, I saw Carla. She was at a small cafe downtown, sitting with a group of friends, talking fast and loud. I walked past, just as she said, he told me his wife was boring, controlling, but she played him like chess. I didn't stop walking. By month's end, Peter was officially broke. His car was repossessed. He'd started driving for a rideshare service with a borrowed vehicle. A mutual friend said he'd picked up a passenger who recognized him and asked, "Didn't your wife open that new store downtown?" He didn't answer. Meanwhile, my store redesign was nearly finished. Sleek black shelving, warm spotlighting, and a consultation nook for high-end clients. I'd hired 2 new team members. Sales were up 18%, month over month. The same week Peter lost his license. For unpaid tickets, I signed a lease for a pop-up boutique in a trendy part of the city. He kept falling. I kept building. 6 months later, my third location opened with a small ribbon-cutting ceremony. No speeches, no press release. Just my team, some regular customers, and a local bakery that catered the event with little lemon tarts Peter always used to hate. Someone asked if I was going to change the name of the shop, rebrand it now that I'd expanded. No, I said, smiling. The name still fits. It started small. But small isn't the same as weak. I hadn't heard from Peter in weeks. The last message he sent was a voice memo, rambling, slightly slurred. He said he missed what we had, that Carla wasn't who he thought she was, and that maybe things could still work out. I blocked the number. Peter's mother still sends Christmas cards. I never reply, but I don't throw them out either. They remind me of where I started and how far I've come. One rainy afternoon, I walked past the cafe where Carla used to hang out. She was sitting alone. When she looked up, she didn't look smug. She looked tired, worn. A girl who finally realized that chaos isn't love. It's just loud. We didn't speak. Back at the store, I added a new framed quote to the office wall, right below the old screenshot of Peter's first message. The quote reads, "Success isn't loud. It doesn't chase. It arrives, quiet, certain, and too strong to ignore." Peter thought that text was the end of our story. He was wrong. It was the beginning of mine.